Hey guys, it's Skybird here, and today we're going to be doing a breakdown build for my Generation 2 Matau. Obviously, Matau, along with the other Turaga, did not actually appear in Generation 2. That said, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that not only did I represent them well, but I also carried over several traits from their Gen 1 appearance, their Gen 1 counterpart. With that said, although I am using the Liwa Gen 2 mask for this video, I actually really prefer a custom mask by Red Star Games, which is this mask in the corner here. That is the Mask of Illusion, and Red Star Games in general does some really excellent work in terms of custom parts, custom masks. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I will absolutely leave a link to their website in the description below so you guys can check out items like this, and they're reasonably priced as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I do have some instructions here so you can kind of follow along, and in terms of the parts needed, you can pause the video here to see exactly which pieces you need to get, and then of course, let's just go ahead and get onto it. The one thing I want to say is, obviously, the original G1 Mahiki there is just a placeholder. Use any mask you want, and there will be some very slight variations, slight changes between the picture that you see and what you see in front of you here. So let's get right on into it. The very first step is obviously a cluster, since it is skipping many steps, but I think you guys can figure out with Generation 2 builds, they're relatively straightforward. We're going to use our smallest bones here, and we're actually going to attach them to the hips of this small torso. We're then going to use the longest bones here in black to attach to the shoulders. These are going to act as our upper arms. The reason we chose these short bones in the legs here is because Matau in Generation 1 is one of the shorter Turaga, so we go ahead and just make sure that we carry that trait over here. That said, if you would like him to be longer, you can obviously change the length of any of the bones here that you would like, or if you want to maybe add more lime green, etc., change the length and type as well. Go ahead and use the rest of our short bones in the arms here at the elbows, and then the medium length bone seen for the neck. Because Matau originally has sort of a hunched back, I wanted to make sure that that was carried over in this build as well. And so let's go ahead and add our fists and then our feet. And you can see that, yes, we are using the type B bones here, but they're really not going to cause any issue with a build like this. His stature in general is going to give us a lot of what we need for mobility. So if you're worried about this character not having enough sort of articulation or being limited in its posability, it's nothing too bad to worry about. So that's where we are at currently. Let's go ahead and move on to the next page, where we are going to take our two silver 4-length shells and attach them to the shins facing upward. We're then going to move forward and attach our lime 3-length shells to the shoulders. So let's go ahead and pop those in place. And next we are going to add our two armor add-ons to the shoulders facing upward. I did want to make sure that all of the Turaga that showed up in Generation 2 had a bit of armor to them, but also in my sort of headcanon, they're maybe retired like battle warriors or something along those lines. They're quite mysterious figures. So that is where we are at currently. Let's go ahead and add our one bright green 4-length shell. And you can see that this figure itself does not actually have a ton of bright green on it, but the bright green will be the most represented color here. Next, we're going to go ahead and add the armor add-on to the torso here, but rather than adding it on where both pins go in, we're actually going to move it up and have this bottom pin go into the top pin hole on that armor piece. Thankfully, LEGO designed this in such a way that it can align relatively well here. It does mean that there's a little bit of sway. You can tilt the piece back and forth, but it allows you to actually make that armor piece on the chest there appear longer since it pokes out at the bottom here. It also represents that bright green color a little bit more at the base and helps to separate the color in 3 different spots. So now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and move to the back, where we are going to take our standard friction pin here, as well as a 3-long friction pin, attaching the 3-long to the top and the standard friction pin directly below that. Next, we are going to add a T-shaped lift arm just to the back here to both of those, so that the top hole here actually aligns with that ball joint at the top. Next, we are going to go ahead and add that stud pin to the base here, and although the next step is going to show us adding this specialized plate here. I'm actually going to wait to do that in just a moment. We're also going to be adding this piece here as well, but I actually want to move forward and attach these friction pins here instead. It just turns out that this is a little bit easier to do before adding those specialized pieces on the back as sort of back armor, so I prefer to do it now. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next part, which again we're going to skip forward here. Bear with me. And we're going to go ahead and take these bright green Technic connectors here, and in this case we're actually going to add this connector. Now in the instructions you'll see that I'm using a black connector with just an axle on one side, but I actually do prefer this connector here. The dark gray is fine, you can use whatever color you prefer, but rather this is going to add a little bit of a stopper in the system here in a moment, which you will see. So what we want to go ahead and do, as you saw in the steps before, is actually attach this specialized plate here to both pinhole or open pins on the, what is this called? This armor piece here. And then we're going to take that center bar there and actually attach that to the stud pin. Before we attach it though, we're actually going to hook the opening here around that exposed pin, and then we just push it in place and now it will connect. And that's how it's going to act as a stopper, because this actual armor piece will prevent this axle from going further back, which will be useful here in a moment, because we are going to attach this cam piece to the top here and then attach this armor piece to that. Before we attach it, I wanted to go ahead and address that this actually has a print on it. It originally came with a Green Lantern CCBS figure. I went ahead and removed that print, but you can leave it on. Honestly, it looks like several of the different types of runes that you would see in Generation 2 Bionicle anyway. And it's a fairly generic design in and of itself. So you really don't have to go through the steps of removing that print. But if you'd like to do so, there are plenty of videos on it. Maybe I'll make one in the future. Going down, we're going to go ahead and add the eye stalk in here, and we're just going to plop that in as we normally do. Now, because I'm using lime green, I am using the longer eye stalk, but there are a lot of bootleg short eye stalks that will allow you to have a little bit of extra head movement back here. One that I really like is this trans dark red, which obviously reflects Matau from the Metro era from 2004, and this is a bootleg piece that I got from Zion Tyros. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They have several different colors of these available on their shop, and I'll try and link that in the description as well. So moving forward, we're just going to attach our mask to the character, and the character himself is done. Of course, that is not everything that makes up this character, so I wanted to go ahead and address the weapons here. We're not going to do as much of a breakdown. They're fairly simple in their design, but I do like them quite a lot. So for this saw build here, cow staff, whatever you want to call this, you're just using a standard T pneumatic bar here. You can do light gray or black. That's my table just failing on me. Don't worry about that. Anyway, you can use the T-bar here in gray or black, either way, and then you can go ahead and attach the leaf piece here by attaching it to one of these hollow studs and then clipping the bar on the other side. This actually does a few things for us. If I can line it up, my hands have been shaky all day long, so I'm definitely struggling, but what this does is it actually allows us to angle this blade here, so we can actually approach the angle of the original cow staff, which is not directly centered, but is actually, it leans forward a little bit, which I quite like. We're going to go ahead and attach this to the arm of the character now by attaching the 6 long axle on one side and the 8 long axle on the other. Since the original Turaga used stabs, I made sure to make all of them carry staffs for Generation 2 as well. Before we set this character aside though, we also have this little build here, which is just a transparent minifigure head, a hollow stud, and a screwdriver piece. That's going to go into the hand, and that screwdriver can actually go all the way through. And before we finish up the character, the last thing we want to address is the potion belt. So that is this build right here, and I really like the way that this turned out. It is a fairly simple build overall, but there are a handful of pieces involved here. I'm going to go ahead and take apart at least a portion of this so you can sort of see exactly what is going on, and then we can kind of multiply things from there. So right off the bat, what you can see here is that there's actually 3 of those specialized rounded plates with the hollow studs on them, which I absolutely love. Super useful. Go get like 100 of them. And we're also using 2 of the hollow studs here in brown, one at the top, one at the base. The last piece that we need are these 3-sided pedal pieces that have a bar attached, and that actually allows it to go all the way through both plates and have a little bit of extra bar there to protrude out the back, which is going to connect to this stud here, which is just a stud with a bar, and it's hollow on top, but it doesn't go all the way through. And so we're just going to go ahead and connect that, and it's basically just something we do 3 times over. Once that is done, we take one of these angled connectors here, which thankfully appear in green, and then we are going to attach another hollow stud. In this case, I like to leave a little bit of room at the base here, so I don't like to push it all the way down, but you can. And how to attach that to the character is actually a little bit more interesting than it might first seem, because it's actually going to go in this slot right here. That stud is going to prevent it from actually coming out, and then it'll drape behind the leg, and then when you push the arm itself down, the shell on the arm will prevent the belt from coming off, and of course gravity as well. It can be a little bit finicky, it can of course come off, but I think that it still works out quite well for display purposes. And that is pretty much it. That is our Matau build. So my idea for Matau in Generation 2 is that he's sort of like an apothecary, soothsayer, mystic type character. He's maybe part happy-go-lucky fun, but also very mysterious, very experimental, right? So it's just playing off of his original sort of characteristics of kind of being a goofier character, but also being quite wise and mysterious and industrious in his knowledge in general. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys did like the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Send some prayers for my table here as it continues to fail. And of course, I will leave links for not only the Red Star Games website and of course Zion Tyros store in the description, but you can also find links for my Discord and Instagram in the description as well. And of course, if you'd like to support what I do here, get some perks over on Discord, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description. Make sure, like I said, to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this video, how you'd prefer I do these in the future. I know it's a little bit washed out here. It's just night. I'm working with what I got, but that's pretty much it. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.